The first time I was alone at home with my new wife's 7-year-old daughter, she just sat there silently and cried. Not loud, not flailing, just tears, quiet, steady. I asked, "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She shook her head and pulled away from me, like I was something unsafe. When I told my wife, Rachel, she just laughed like it was nothing. She just doesn't like you. But there was something in her eyes, not concern, almost amusement. On the second night, while Rachel was away on a business trip, Emily walked up to me, clutching her little school backpack. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Daddy, look at this." I will never forget what I saw when she opened it. My hands started trembling. My heart sank like stone. And I called 911. Immediately. If you've ever trusted a child's instincts more than an adult's words, this story will shake you. When I married Rachel, I knew blending a family wouldn't be easy. She was radiant, confident, the kind of woman who could light up a room and shut down a debate in the same breath. But she was guarded, especially when it came to her daughter. Emily was 7, small for her age, quiet, always holding something in, like a breath that never got to leave. Her big brown eyes would follow me around the house, not curious, not shy, but cautious, like she was watching something she didn't trust. Early on, I tried everything. I brought her books, toys, even a giant stuffed unicorn once. She never touched it. She'd just sit, shoulders stiff, lips pressed tight, eyes flicking toward the door. Rachel would brush it off with a laugh. "She's just used to it being the two of us." I believed her, because love makes you believe things, even when something inside you is quietly whispering, "This isn't normal." But things changed after we moved in together. At first, it was little things. Emily would freeze every time Rachel left the house, not tantrums, not screams, just stillness. Then the tears would come, quiet, barely breathing. She'd sit in the corner, knees pulled to her chest, as if trying to disappear. I tried to comfort her, sat beside her, spoke gently, offered my hand. She'd flinch, pull away, her eyes wide with something that looked a lot like fear. "What's wrong, Emily?" I'd ask. She'd just shake her head, every single time. I told Rachel. I said, "I think something's off." She rolled her eyes. "She just doesn't like you. Don't take it personally." But the way she said it, it wasn't annoyed. It was amused, like she enjoyed the fact that her daughter was afraid of me. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't let myself feel before: suspicion. Still, I tried, every single day. I'd wake up early to make her pancakes, chocolate chip, just the way Rachel said she liked them. I'd leave little notes in her lunchbox with drawings of smiley faces and silly animals. I offered bedtime stories, even though she never said yes. She never yelled, never acted out, but she never smiled either. Sometimes I'd catch her watching me, her tiny frame just standing in the hallway, half hidden behind the wall. Those eyes, not curious, not angry, just blank. I remember thinking, how do you earn trust from someone who's already decided you're not safe? Rachel kept brushing it off. "She'll warm up eventually," she'd say. Then she'd laugh. Or maybe she won't. That laugh, I used to love it. But lately it started to sound like something else. Like she knew something I didn't. And it wasn't funny. When Rachel told me she had a 3-day business trip coming up, New York, some conference, I didn't hesitate. "I'll watch Emily," I said. "Maybe some time alone will help us finally connect." She paused, just for a second. "You sure about that?" "Positive," I said. Rachel looked at me for a moment, longer than usual, like she was searching my face for something. Then she smiled, kissed her goodnight for me. That night she packed in a rush, kissed Emily on the forehead, told her to be good, and then she was gone. As the front door closed behind her, the silence in the house felt heavier than usual. Emily didn't say a word. She just stood there, arms crossed, eyes on the floor. We watched a movie. Well, I watched. She sat at the other end of the couch, wrapped in a blanket that she held up to her nose like a shield. She fell asleep that way, still wrapped tight, still silent. And I started to wonder, what exactly did she think I was? The next day moved slowly. I made her breakfast. She didn't touch it. I asked if she wanted to go to the park. She shook her head. I tried a joke. Nothing. It wasn't anger. It was absence. Emily didn't speak a single word to me all morning. Not during lunch. Not during her favorite cartoons. Just silence. like she was holding her breath through the hours. Then came the evening. I was in the laundry room, folding towels, trying to distract myself from the weight in the air. I heard soft footsteps behind me. Turning, I saw her. Emily, standing there, shoulders small, hands clutching the straps of her pink backpack so tight her knuckles were white. She walked slowly, like her feet weren't sure they should move. "Daddy." I froze. Her voice was barely above a whisper, the first word she'd spoken to me in 2 days. She looked up, eyes big, wet. "Look at this." And with trembling fingers, she began to unzip the backpack. Emily's fingers worked carefully, like she'd done this 100 times, but still wasn't sure she was allowed to. She pulled the zipper down slowly, then reached inside. No toys, no books, no snacks. Just one single sheet of paper, folded neatly, too neatly. She held it out to me with both hands, arms shaking, lips pressed tight. I took it, and even before I unfolded it, I knew something was wrong. The paper was stiff from pressure. The kind of pressure only a crayon leaves when it's gripped too hard by a tiny, terrified hand. I opened it, a child's drawing. Crude stick figures, but not the kind you'd put on a fridge. It was her. I could tell by the brown hair and the pink dress. Next to her, a tall figure towering, its face covered in thick black scribbles like someone was trying to erase it but couldn't. They were in a room. The door was shut. Above them, written over and over in slanted red crayon, "No, no, no." And in the corner, a bed with a red stain. My hands were already shaking before I even realized I'd reached for my phone. That drawing, those words, the red, the scribbled out face. It wasn't just disturbing. It was a scream, silent but unmistakable. I looked at Emily. She was still standing there, backpack open like the moment hadn't moved. Her eyes met mine, not afraid anymore, not exactly, more like waiting for what I'd do next. I tapped the emergency number, pressed call. 911, what's your emergency? My voice barely worked. My stepdaughter just showed me something. She's 7. I think she's been... I stopped, couldn't say the word. Emily was staring at me, lips trembling, but her eyes, they were steady now. "She's been hurt," I said. "I don't know by who, but I know someone did something." The operator's tone didn't change, calm, focused. "What exactly did she show you, sir?" I looked down at the drawing again. My fingers clenched. She showed me the truth. The operator kept speaking, but her voice faded into the background. All I could hear was Emily's breathing, shallow, shaky. I crouched down, holding the drawing gently, like it might break if I squeezed too tight. "Emily," I said softly, who is this in the picture?" She didn't answer right away, just walked over to the couch and climbed up slowly, curling into the corner like she always did. But then, something changed. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time. "I don't know his name," she whispered. Her voice was small, tired, older than it should have been. "But he comes when Mommy's not home." The silence after that was thick. It filled the room. I sat down on the floor, like my legs had forgotten how to stand. Does she know?" I asked. Emily didn't cry. She just nodded, once. She told me not to talk about it, ever. And right then, I stopped being confused and started being angry. The doorbell rang like a jolt of electricity. Not loud, but sharp. Emily flinched. I stood too fast and had to steady myself on the coffee table. My hands were still shaking. The phone call only just finished. Through the peephole, 2 police officers, and a woman in plain clothes with a badge clipped to her jacket. Child Protective Services. I opened the door, wordless. "Mr. Walker?" one of the officers asked. I nodded. "She's inside," I said quietly. "My stepdaughter, Emily." The CPS worker, Ms. Parker, stepped in gently, her voice low and careful. "Hi there, sweetheart. Can I sit with you?" Emily looked unsure at first, eyes flicking to me. I gave her a small nod. She nodded back. Barely. I handed the drawing to the officer. He studied it for only a second before his jaw tightened. "Did she say who this man is?" "No," I said. "Only that he comes when Rachel isn't home, and that Rachel told her not to tell anyone." They exchanged a look. One I didn't understand, but didn't like. One of the officers stepped aside, his radio crackling. He muttered something into his shoulder mic, then looked at me. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "do you know a man named Bradley Stone?" The name landed like a rock in my stomach. Bradley. "Yeah," I said slowly. "He's Rachel's co-worker. They've worked together for years." "Why?" The officer pulled out his phone, scrolled, tapped, then turned the screen toward me. Grainy footage filled the screen, security camera, timestamps in the corner. It showed Bradley entering our neighborhood at 2:14 a.m. 2 weeks ago. He didn't knock, didn't call. He used the side gate, and then he unlocked the back door with a key. My knees almost gave out. The officer's face was grave. "Mr. Walker," he said quietly, "we need to talk about who exactly your wife has been letting into this house." I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Rachel had lied to me, but worse, she had protected him. Rachel's flight landed just after 6:30 p.m. She called me before even leaving the airport. Her voice was bright, effortless. "Hey babe," she chirped. "Just landed. Can't wait to get home and squeeze my baby girl. How's Emily been?" I stared at the phone in my hand. Emily wasn't home anymore. CPS had taken her for medical evaluation and temporary protective custody. The officers were still in the house. Evidence was being logged. Drawings, messages, security footage, and Rachel. She sounded like everything was perfectly normal. "I'll be home in 20, she said. "Should I pick up Thai food or—" I pressed record and finally answered. "Tessa." My voice was flat, cold. She hesitated. "You okay? You sound weird." I took a breath. My hands were steady now. "I have a few questions for you." That was when the cheer in her voice cracked, just a little. Sure," she said. "What's going on?" I looked across the room at the officer holding the drawing, and I asked calmly, "Why did Bradley Stone have a key to our house?" There was silence on the other end. Not confusion, not shock, just silence. "What?" she finally said, trying to laugh, but it didn't land. "Mike, what are you even talking about?" I didn't raise my voice, didn't accuse. I just let the facts do the talking. "I saw the footage," I said. 2:14 a.m. 2 weeks ago. Bradley walked through our side gate, used a key, and went straight into the house. Another pause, longer this time. "You're being paranoid," she said, voice tightening. "That's not possible." "No," I said, "because the police are here, right now. They saw it too." She gasped. "They're— what?" "They have your iPad," I continued. "The one Emily plays games on. They found the app, the hidden messages, the photos." "No, Mike, I know what you said to him." My voice was ice. "She doesn't say a word. Don't go to the house while I'm gone." She didn't deny it. She just whispered, "You read my private messages?" "No," I said. "The police did." Rachel's breath caught. Then the sobbing started. Not quiet, not real, loud, theatrical, desperate. "You don't understand," she cried. "I didn't know how to stop it. I thought she was exaggerating. Bradley said she was confused, that she made things up." I stayed silent. "Mike, I didn't want to lose my job," she pleaded. "I didn't want drama. I just needed things to be calm." Calm. That word stuck in my chest like a splinter. She traded a child's safety for calm. "You told me," I said quietly, "that Emily didn't like me." There was a long silence on her end. I could hear her breathing and crying, but she didn't speak. "You let her cry herself to sleep every night," I went on. "You laughed when she was afraid of me. You knew what was happening." "No, Mike, please." Her voice cracked. "We can talk about this. Work through it. As a family." I didn't answer, just looked over at the CPS officer. And then, without another word, I ended the call. The call ended with a click that felt louder than it should have. I stood there for a moment, phone still in my hand. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. It wasn't empty, it was final. I walked over to the officers. Miss Parker was sitting beside Emily in the other room, gently stroking her hair while the little girl stared blankly at the wall. I held out my phone. "I recorded the call," I said. "You'll want to hear it." The lead officer took it, plugged in his earpiece, listened, and with each passing second, his face hardened. He didn't say anything until it ended. Then he gave a single nod. "That's enough," he said. "We'll issue the arrest the moment she steps off the plane." I looked at Emily. She wasn't crying, but she wasn't calm either. She was in between. And I realized that space between fear and safety was where she had been living for far too long. Not anymore. Rachel never saw it coming. She landed at Charlotte Douglas Airport just before 7 p.m., still texting me. "Home in 30. Can't wait to see you both." Smiley face. Heart emoji. She walked off the jet bridge with her carry-on bag, checking her phone. Then she looked up and froze. 2 officers were waiting. Badge out. Behind them, a woman from CPS, clipboard in hand, calm, professional. "Rachel Walker?" She blinked, looked around. Yes? "You're under arrest for child endangerment, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to conceal abuse of a minor." "What?" she gasped. "No, there must be a mistake." They didn't let her finish. They cuffed her right there, in the middle of Terminal B. People stopped, watched. Someone started filming. She didn't fight. She didn't run. But she did cry. Not for Emily, for herself. And back home, I sat on the couch Emily had curled up on 2 nights earlier and waited for the next knock on the door. 2 days after Rachel's arrest, it was Bradley's turn. He was at work, downtown Charlotte, financial district, glass building, corner office, wearing a tailored suit, smiling like nothing in the world could touch him. Until it did. The officers walked in without warning. 6 of them. His assistant barely had time to ask what was happening. Bradley turned around, confused, until he saw the handcuffs. "Bradley Stone," the lead detective said, "you're under arrest for multiple counts of child abuse, possession of illegal materials, and criminal conspiracy." He opened his mouth, but whatever excuse he had planned died on his tongue. They searched his office, his phone, his laptop. They found encrypted files, hidden folders. They found enough. His bail was denied the same day. No press release, no sympathy, just cold, hard steel, and a name that would never again be followed by respected colleague or rising executive. Bradley Stone had run out of rooms to hide in. The system doesn't move quickly, even when the truth is clear, even when the abuser's in jail and the mother's in custody. Emily had no next of kin, no grandparents willing to step forward, no extended family who wanted to be involved, except me. And I meant what I said. I wasn't going to let her go through this alone. I hired an attorney, met with caseworkers, spent hours in courtrooms that smelled like cold tile and stale coffee. They asked me questions I didn't expect. "What's your income? Have you ever raised a child before? Why didn't you suspect anything sooner?" Each question felt like a wound, but I answered everyone. Calm, honest, determined. I sat through home evaluations, psychological assessments, fingerprinting. I opened every drawer, every file, every moment of my life to prove I was safe. And through it all, I never stopped showing up for her, because every time she looked for my hand, I made sure it was there. Not just once, every time. Healing doesn't look like the movies. There's no big moment, no instant breakthrough. It's quiet, uneven, messy. Emily didn't smile for weeks. She'd flinch at sudden noises, avoid eye contact, sleep with the light on, even during the day. But I stayed close. I didn't push. I made routines, structure, warm meals, a nightlight that stayed on no matter what. Some nights she would come out of her room and just stand in the hallway, silent, still. I'd pretend not to notice, then slowly pat the couch beside me. She'd crawl up, curl into a ball, and rest her head near my arm, and I'd stay there, as long as she needed. The first time she reached out on her own, just her fingers, brushing against mine like she wasn't sure I'd stay, it nearly broke me. But I didn't move. I just held her hand. And in that small silence, something cracked. Not her. The fear. It happened on a Tuesday. Cartoons were playing on the TV, one of those goofy animal shows with bad sound effects and nonsense dialogue. I wasn't paying attention. I was just happy she was on the couch, next to me, not curled in the corner, not flinching, just sitting. She had a blanket over her lap, her little hands gripping the edge like always. Then something on the screen made a noise, this ridiculous squeaky voice shouting "Muffin Cannon," or something just as dumb. And Emily? She smiled. Not a big one, not even with her teeth. Just the corners of her lips twitching up, like her face forgot for a second that it wasn't supposed to know joy anymore. I didn't react. Didn't gasp or make it a big deal. I just smiled too, quietly. She looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't fear. It was small, fragile, but it was there. Trust. It was late. We had just finished watching a movie, something animated and gentle, the kind with soft music and predictable endings. Emily had drifted off beside me, her head resting lightly against my chest. Her breathing was steady, warm. I didn't move, not even an inch. The TV played credits in the background, the glow casting soft shadows across the room. Then, just as her body relaxed into sleep, I felt it. Her small fingers curled around mine, and then, barely a whisper, almost lost in the silence. "Daddy." I stopped breathing. It wasn't the word itself. It was the way she said it, not forced, not out of fear, like it belonged. I blinked hard, afraid that even the sound of my own breath might break the moment. She didn't open her eyes, didn't say it again. She didn't have to, because in that one word, she gave me everything I'd been trying to earn, not by blood, by showing up, by staying. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Hard benches, pale walls, fluorescent lights that made everyone look tired, but the room was full. Reporters, social workers, lawyers, victim advocates, even strangers, people who'd followed the case from the outside, now watching it come to a close. Rachel sat at the defense table, still, pale, her hands folded too neatly, like she thought calmness could undo what had been done. She never looked at me, not once, but Emily did. She sat beside me, holding my hand like it was the only safe place on earth, and maybe it was. She didn't say a word during the hearing. She didn't have to. The evidence spoke for her. The drawings, the messages, the timeline, the silence she'd endured. The judge's voice was firm, unwavering. 14 years. Rachel didn't cry this time. She just blinked, like she was trying to figure out how everything had unraveled. I looked down at Emily. She was calm. She had already let go of the past. The system was just catching up. Bradley's trial didn't take long. The evidence was overwhelming. Encrypted files, photos, messages, security footage. He tried to delay it, claimed mental stress, a need for psychiatric evaluation. His lawyers requested reduced charges, negotiated plea deals. None of it worked. Because the truth had teeth now, and it bit back. The courtroom was quieter than Rachel's. No reporters this time, just the low hum of tension. He stood there in a gray suit that didn't fit quite right anymore, head down, hands trembling. The judge read out the charges one by one: aggravated sexual abuse of a minor, possession of exploitative material, criminal conspiracy, tampering with a witness, 25 years, no parole. He didn't speak, didn't argue. He just stared at the floor, like the weight of it had finally cracked through the shell he used to hide in. And when they cuffed him and led him away, I didn't feel satisfaction. I didn't feel revenge. I felt something simpler, relief, because he would never come near her again. After the trials, the world didn't magically heal. There were no parades, no closing music, no finish line, just mornings. Mornings with cereal, cartoons, a girl brushing her teeth in silence but not fear. The air in the house felt different now, lighter. I painted Emily's room myself, let her pick the color, sky blue. She filled it with stuffed animals, drawings, and pillows, the kind of things she never clung to before. She started humming sometimes, little breathy tunes with no melody but full of something I hadn't heard from her before. Presence. We'd go on walks. She'd hold my hand without me offering first. She started reading aloud at bedtime. Then one day, she laughed. An actual laugh. Not a nervous smile or reflex. A laugh from her belly. Uncontrolled. Loud. I stopped what I was doing and just watched her. Because that laugh, it wasn't part of her past. It was something brand new. And I knew, in that moment, we weren't just surviving anymore. We were living. The courtroom was smaller this time. No cameras, no reporters. Just paperwork, a judge, and a little girl in a yellow dress who kept swinging her legs under the bench. Emily didn't seem nervous, not like before. She held my hand the entire time. Didn't let go, not once. I'd been through background checks, interviews, home inspections, psychological evaluations, hours and hours of waiting, proving, re-explaining. But none of that compared to what Emily had gone through. The judge looked at the file, then at me, then at her. "Emily," she asked gently, "do you know why you're here today?" Emily nodded, quietly. And do you want Mr. Walker to be your legal guardian? Emily looked up at me, then turned to the judge, and said with no hesitation, "He already is." My throat tightened. The judge smiled. "Well then," she said, signing the paper, "let's make it official." Just like that. Not with blood, not with obligation, but with choice and love. I was her father now, and she had always been my daughter. A few weeks after the guardianship was finalized, I put the house up for sale. Not because it wasn't safe anymore, but because it never really had been. Too many memories lived in the walls, too many silences, too many cries that no one heard in time. I walked from room to room that last morning, the kitchen where I made pancakes she never touched, the hallway where she used to stand without speaking, the living room where she finally whispered, "Daddy, look at this." I stopped in her old bedroom, the one we painted sky blue. She had taken her stuffed animals, her books, her drawings. What she left behind was the nightlight, still plugged in, still glowing, not because she needed it anymore, but maybe because she wanted to give it to the next child who might. I didn't cry, but I stood there longer than I meant to. Then I turned off the light, walked out the door, and didn't look back. Some places hold you prisoner. Others teach you how to leave. We didn't move far, just 2 towns over. A quiet street lined with maple trees and porches that always had rocking chairs. The kind of neighborhood where people waved from across the yard. Where dogs barked at squirrels and mailboxes still had flags. It wasn't big, but it was ours. I let Emily pick her new room. She ran straight to the one with the biggest window and shouted, "This one!" like she'd been waiting her whole life to claim something. We unpacked slow, one box at a time. She placed her books on a new shelf, her drawings on a new wall, a fresh beginning, not to erase what came before, but to build something stronger in its place. She asked if we could plant a garden. I said yes. We spent the whole weekend digging, laughing, learning how much sun tomatoes need. There was dirt under her nails and joy in her eyes. It didn't feel like starting over. It felt like starting right. I used to think fatherhood came with a manual, rules, roles, maybe a few instinctive skills passed down through blood. Turns out none of that mattered. Emily wasn't born from me, but she made me a father anyway, not all at once, not with some grand moment, but piece by piece, in the way she started saying goodnight instead of just walking away, in the way she waited for me before crossing the street, in the way she asked if I'd come to her school play, then whispered, "Only if you want to." It's the quiet trust that wrecks you, the tiny moments where you realize this child, this brave, hurting, healing little soul, has let you into her world, and now you have a choice, to protect it, to show up, to be steady, every day, no matter what came before, no matter how imperfect you are, because fatherhood, it isn't something you're given, it's something you choose. It was a Saturday afternoon, late spring. We had just come back from the library. Emily was curled up on the couch, flipping through a picture book, one leg tucked under her. I was in the kitchen, washing dishes, humming something without realizing it. Then I heard her voice. "Hey, Daddy?" Still knew that word. Still lit a fuse in my chest every time she said it. "Yeah, sweetheart?" She hesitated. Closed the book. Looked at me with that steady, serious stare she had when she was about to ask something big. If I wanted to, could I change my last name? The words hit me harder than I expected. I turned off the water, dried my hands slowly, walked over and sat beside her. "You can do anything you want," I said. "But why do you ask?" She shrugged, looked down. "I just don't like the one I have. It doesn't feel like me anymore." I didn't cry. Not then. I just nodded. "Okay," I said. "Then let's talk about what name feels right." We didn't rush it. I told her we'd wait until she was sure, that it was her decision and hers alone. Over the next few weeks, she asked quiet questions. "What was your name when you were my age? Did you like it? Do you think names can change people?" I never gave her answers, only reflections. Then, one evening after dinner, she came into my office, hair messy, socks mismatched, holding a sticky note. "I picked one," she said, handing it to me. I looked down. It was my last name, Walker. Underneath it, in shaky handwriting, she'd written, "Emily Grace Walker." I looked up. Her eyes were shining, nervous, hopeful. "You sure?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah, I think I've always been that." I pulled her into a hug, tight, grounding, the kind you give when words won't do. She didn't just choose my name, she chose her future. One not defined by what happened to her, but by who she decided to become. It started as a school project. Write a letter to your younger self, the assignment said. What would you say? What do you wish she knew? Emily didn't bring it up at first, just sat at the dining table after dinner, pencil in hand, staring at a blank sheet of paper. An hour passed, then 2. I walked by, gently asked if she needed help. She shook her head. No, I just want to get it right. The next morning, I found the letter folded neatly on the table. She had left it there without a word. I didn't mean to read it, but I did, and I'll never forget what it said. Dear little me, you were scared, but it wasn't your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. I'm proud of you for staying strong, even when it felt like no one could see you. But someone does now. He's here, and he stays. You're safe now. You can sleep. Love, Emily Grace Walker. I sat down and cried, not because she was still hurting, but because she was finally healing. There was a time when sleep was the scariest part of Emily's day. Back then, it meant the lights had to go off, the door had to close, and her mind, left in the dark, could wander to places no child should know. But lately, things were different. One night I passed by her room and saw her light already off, the nightlight, unplugged, door cracked open. I stopped at the doorway just to listen. She was breathing softly, peacefully. No tossing, no murmuring, no blankets pulled up like armor. Just sleep. Honest, deep, healing sleep. I stepped in, kissed the top of her head, then turned to leave. Quiet, careful. But just as I reached the door, her voice drifted out. Night, Daddy. I turned. She wasn't even fully awake, but she knew I was there. And she wasn't afraid anymore. That's what healing looks like sometimes. Not applause, not milestones, just a child, finally able to rest. It showed up one morning. No announcement. No, look what I made. Just a folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter, next to the cereal box. I opened it, expecting another library list or school worksheet. But it was a drawing. Crayon again, but different this time. No black scribbles, no red words, no closed doors. Just 2 stick figures holding hands under a sky full of sunshine and flowers. One figure was small, wearing a pink dress, hair tied in a short brown ponytail. The other was taller, with a baseball cap, and what looked like a burnt piece of toast in one hand. Probably me. Above them, in bright yellow letters, me and Daddy. No fear, no hiding, just truth. The kind of truth you don't need to speak to believe. I didn't say anything to her when she walked into the kitchen. I just picked up a magnet and pinned it to the fridge, right where it belonged. And she smiled. Not because I noticed, but because I always had. It was just a Wednesday. Another school assembly, folding chairs, a stage made of plywood and courage. Emily had told me nothing about it. Just a regular thing, she'd said. I believed her, until the principal called her name. I looked up, surprised. She stood from the second row, walked slowly to the microphone. No cue cards, no script. She wore a yellow sweater and jeans with a hole in the knee. Her hair was neatly brushed, and in her hand was the drawing from the fridge. The room quieted. She looked at the paper, then up at the crowd, then right at me, and in a voice soft but steady she began. A few years ago I was really scared. I didn't talk much, I didn't sleep much, and I didn't think anyone would believe me. But someone did. He listened, he stayed, and now, I'm not scared anymore. She held up the drawing. This is my dad. He's not my dad because of blood. He's my dad because he never stopped showing up. Silence, then applause, but I didn't clap, I just stood. Because she didn't need noise. She needed presence, and I was there. Emily turned 10 that year. 3 candles, not 10, her choice. 1 for now, she said. 1 for where I've been. And 1 for where I'm going. I didn't argue, I just lit them. No party clowns, no chaos. Just a backyard picnic with cupcakes, lemonade, and 2 neighbors who'd become like family. She wore a paper crown, not the plastic kind. The kind we made together out of construction paper and too much glue. She laughed more than she ate, told jokes that didn't make sense, then doubled over laughing at her own punchlines. I remember looking around, at the trees, the open sky, her barefoot on the grass, and thinking, this is what survival looks like when it finds joy. Not loud, not perfect, but whole. Later that night, as I tucked her in, she said, "This was the best birthday ever." I smiled. "You say that every year." She nodded, eyes half closed. "I know. That's how I know it keeps getting better." And for the first time, I believed her. We hadn't driven past the old house in over a year. I never planned to, but Emily asked, "Can we go by? Just once?" I hesitated. "Why?" She shrugged. "I don't know. Just to see it. With different eyes." So we went. It was a cloudy afternoon. The lawn was overgrown. A different car in the driveway. The wind chimes Rachel had hung were gone. We didn't get out. Just sat in the car, parked across the street. Emily stared at the front door like it was a photo from someone else's life. "I used to think that place was a trap," she whispered. "It was," I said. She didn't look at me. "But it's also where I found you." That landed somewhere deep. We stayed there a while, just watching the windows, shuttered, unfamiliar. Then she smiled. "Okay, I'm done." "Yeah?" "Yeah. I just wanted to see that it's smaller than I remembered." She leaned back in her seat. "Let's go home." And so we did. And so we, without looking back. It came on a Tuesday, plain envelope, no fanfare, just my name typed in black ink and a return address from the courthouse. Emily was at school. I was cleaning the kitchen when I saw it in the mailbox. Thin, official. I knew what it was before I opened it. Still, I sat down before I did. Inside, one page, typed, formal, but final. Petition for legal adoption, approved. I read it once, then again, and again. Somewhere between the second and third time, my hands started shaking, not from fear, from relief, from knowing that what we had built, through fire, through silence, through every unspoken moment, was now written in ink. Not just guardianship, not temporary, permanent. When Emily got home, she dropped her backpack by the door and asked, "What's for dinner?" like it was just another Tuesday. I held up the letter. She stared at it, then at me. Then she ran into my arms and didn't let go. She didn't need to read it, she already knew. It wasn't her birthday, it wasn't mine, but it meant more than either. 1 year. Since the night she showed me the drawing, since everything changed. We didn't talk about it much. I never wanted her to feel like her pain was something to be marked on a calendar. But that evening, as we sat on the porch, just the two of us, warm tea in hand, fireflies flickering at the edges of the yard, Emily looked over and said, "Do you remember what today is?" I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, I remember." She took a long sip from her mug. "I used to think that was the worst day of my life," she said. I stayed quiet. But now, I don't know. Maybe it was the bravest. Her voice was steady, not a whisper, not a tremble. And for the first time, she didn't look like she was remembering pain. She looked like she was remembering strength. She leaned her head on my shoulder. We didn't say anything after that. We didn't need to. Some anniversaries don't need candles, just presents. And peace. Bedtime had become simple, predictable, no longer a battlefield, pajamas, toothbrush, a short book, then lights out. But that night, as I pulled the blanket over her and reached for the switch, Emily spoke. "Wait." I paused, turned to her. She looked up at me, calm, eyes soft, no shadows. "Can you stay for a minute?" "Of course." I sat on the edge of the bed. She reached out, took my hand, hers smaller but firm. "You remember that first night?" she asked. "When Mom left for her trip?" My breath caught. "Yeah, I remember." She nodded slowly. "I was so scared. But I think a part of me hoped you'd call someone." I blinked. "I didn't know if you would. But when you did..." She squeezed my hand. It felt like I mattered, like someone finally saw me. I didn't speak. Couldn't. She pulled the blanket up to her chin, gave a sleepy smile. "I'm glad it was you." I reached out, brushed her hair back. "I'm glad it was me too." Then I turned off the light and left the door cracked open, just like she liked it. People say blood makes you family. I used to believe that, but now I've learned something else. Blood is biology, but love, the steady kind, the inconvenient kind, the kind that shows up when things get ugly, that's what makes you a parent. That's what makes you home. Emily doesn't remember everything from before, and I don't ask her to. What matters is what came after. Today her room is filled with drawings, not in red, not with scribbled faces, but sunlight, trees, two figures holding hands. She still writes my name at the bottom of them, not because she has to, because she wants to. This story isn't just about justice. It's about rebuilding, reclaiming, choosing love in the aftermath of silence. And if you've made it this far, maybe you've been there too. So if you're someone who stayed, someone who showed up, or someone who needed someone to, just know this. It's never too late to be the one who says, I see you. I believe you. I'm not going anywhere. If this story meant something to you, leave a comment. Or just type, I stayed. Because sometimes that's all it takes.